Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap today because the talks between Russia and Ukraine, this round of talks, is over. But I want to cover some of the points, just to summarize, from a couple of days ago and some of the questions that were asked, and then how things worked out. So, as far as I'm concerned, having looked at a bunch of sources, I regularly look through multiple sources. And so far, The Guardian has the best summary. If you need details, I suggest looking up each individual portion of the summary and then looking at those sources. In addition to The Guardian, BBC, Reuters, Ukraine's Censor, Kyiv Independent, Kyiv Post, Radio Free Europe, Center for Strategic Studies, if you want the military details. But if you want just a quick high-level overview, The Guardian has a really, really good one. So, going into the talks, which took place yesterday and today in Abu Dhabi. The main question was, so how close is a peace deal and what are the terms, right? Because we have heard things like, oh, it's 90% complete, 80% complete, 28 points, 20 points, whatever. So, but really, what are we talking about here? Now, a lot of people say that the fact that Russians and Ukrainians are even talking to each other is a good sign. But let's not forget what we're dealing with, whom we are dealing with here. And the problem with discussing peace, any kind of peace, is again Russia's attitude, my way or the highway. I want to make this very clear. Russia is in the wrong. They have invaded their neighbor for reasons that are based on lies. That information is available. Russia's claims have been debunked many, many times. So, Russia is in the wrong here. And the main point of contention, one of the main points of contention, remains Ukrainian territory. Ukrainians want Russia the fuck out of there. Understandably. Anybody would. Any reasonable, sensible person. If somebody came barging into their anything, their country, their city, their home, would want them the fuck out of there. And Russia doesn't want to. And even though people of Ukraine are exhausted, despite being bombed every single day for months and months and months, they're still saying no. Why? Why should we give a portion of our sovereign country to another country who is being an asshole? Russia continues trying to pound Ukrainian civilians into submission. I love this graph. So this is daily Russian strikes on Ukraine. And this is not against military targets. This is against civilians. Look at this. They failed to beat Ukrainians into submission last January, so they have increased the attacks by, let's see, what are we looking at here? About 4 times. And what is frustrating to Russia is that for all of their boasting that they're winning, their progress has been not so great, and the cost has been astronomical. So, Zelensky is not an idiot. At least, not as much of an idiot as he was when he started his presidency. He did a lot of growing up over the last 4 years. And he had expressed hope that, okay, even if we don't agree on anything else, can we at least do another prisoner exchange? Can we get some people home? So, everything else that came out of this so far has been described in very high-level general terms. They're describing it as substantive. They're describing it as productive. They're saying concrete steps, practical solutions. Okay, can you tell us what they are? Because I want to know what this all means. Because right away, immediately after the talks concluded, Kremlin spokesman Peskov said that Russia will keep doing what it's doing until Ukraine made decisions that could bring the war to an end. Translation, until Ukraine surrendered. So far, I'm not seeing anything peaceful as the outcome of these peace talks. It's the same thing over and over again. Meanwhile, again, we know what happened. So we already know about the strike against the city market that took place recently. What is now coming out is additional information that Russia used cluster munitions, which are illegal under the international law. Except Russia doesn't recognize international law. And so, yeah, it's not surprising that a lot of the regional managers, regional leaders, are describing these conversations with Russia about ceasefire as worthless and a waste of time. Because people on the ground continue to get pounded and continue to die. Odessa has been hit again, and again it was civilian, residential, and industrial infrastructure. 20 buildings were damaged. 4 people were rescued from under the rubble that we know of. The talks have now concluded. Zelensky went and talked to, one of the staunchest supporters, Poland's Prime Minister, Tusk, reiterating the need for security guarantees. And he's right. When he says that security guarantees for Ukraine are also beneficial to Europe, he is right. Because Ukraine continues to be the buffer between Europe and Russia's ally Belarus. So wouldn't it make sense to strengthen that buffer? There's also a weapons deal in the works between Ukraine and Poland. And Poland is also preparing another aid package for Ukraine, focusing on the armored equipment. Thank you, Poland. The most important result of these talks is an agreement to another POW exchange. So they agreed on 314 total. So 157 Russians went home and 157 Ukrainians were released on our end. And once again, I believe Russian soldiers were much safer in Ukraine than they will ever be in Russia. They will just get sent back into the meat grinder. More to come.